It's possible, but it's not possible. Sorry. Sorry, interpreter. It's impossible. So right now, it's not in the realm of our duty. So before I was part of the advisory council to the WIDA exam, I remember Leah Sparks, Steve Smart, I believe Linda Trippi was also involved in that, and who else, you guys remember from that time at the WIDA Advisory Council?
At that time we had,
One moment, we can't see your hands. Amber, can you?
Mary Mayer from Elkhorn. We also had Allison Erdahl.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
We had some turnover, but we also had Saul from Switz in the past at that time. Karen Dishno was also involved on the advisory committee. We had Brenda Prudham Walker as well. She was actually our contractor at that time, but she was involved.
Yes, Linda Trippi is saying, yes, that's correct.
And that's what I wanted to discuss. The WIDA Advisory Council, I want to say 5-6+ years ago, we investigated other certification or alternative certifications options and possibly developing our own test, and we quickly realized that the budget there is unattainable. We are not going to be able to, get to that point to develop a test, then administer the test. It's not easy as we thought. And RID's even going through that process right now. So now the WIDA Advisory Council did investigate that already. So in my, understanding, it's just not part of our discussion.
So this is Terry. Before the WIDA, did we have the QA? I remember had the QA, and a lot of people here sitting were part of the evaluation. Eve, I think Tom was part of the QA/WIDA before process.
Yes.
That back then, it was in the early 80s, we had that QA system.
Yeah, I believe that stopped in '89.
Yeah, and even before 89.
I was in the ITP way long ago in '96, and at that time they were transitioning from the QA to the WIDA. So my cohort actually took both. We did the QA and we also did the WIDA in our year, and it scared the daylights out of me. Let me just tell you, having the panel, the live panel, instead of a videotape test, it was crazy. But anyways, yeah, '96, I think you were saying, that was my cohort. I just remember that day, it scarred me for life. 2 exams on the same day, nope. All right, so maybe we can hold this. What can we do to partner with ODHH? Again, these are all ODHH related questions.
Perhaps, this is Dan, maybe after the presentation, it would be best to come back to these questions, because some might be answered during the presentation.
Okay. Now, you're gonna answer these now, or do you guys feel in your presentation they will be, or later?
This is Amber. We will be talking about the BEI, WIDA, and a few other things during our presentation. So for those particular questions, we'd like to hold them to see if they're answered. For anything else, we can comment now. But BEI concerns and comments questions would be best held for the presentation.
All right, how about this one? I don't know if you could answer this one now.
Sure.
About people who are looking for interpreters.
So this is Dan, I believe here this one is the one you're referring to, correct? It says, if someone is looking for an interpreter, they're often referred to ODHH. But is ODHH responsible for helping to provide interpreter services? they often don't have the resources, and who can really help individuals looking for interpreters. So that's the question that you're looking for an answer on in terms of our role. As you know, we do provide information referral. That's a really clear service that we offer. And we do have a website, an ODHH website. I don't know if you're familiar with it or if you've visited that site before. But there is a section for sign language interpreters. And there's also a listing of our deaf and hard of hearing specialists there. And Betty is out of our Southwestern office. And oftentimes we'll refer to individuals, depending on their region, to that specialist, and they can answer questions. Sometimes it's employers, nonprofit organizations, schools. We're contacted by a variety of people. A lot of those individuals aren't familiar with interpreter services, so we do refer to our specialists, our deaf and hard of hearing specialists. We do have a service fund which can sometimes assist with funding interpreters, paying for interpreters. We'll talk more about that later. We do provide, of course, for our staff interpreter services. Our staff interpreters sometimes will be the interpreters sent for large state events. Otherwise, we do refer out to other interpreters to fill requests. So that's the role that ODHH plays in providing assistance with interpreter services. Questions around that at this time? So really, that's the purpose for ODHH and our role in that. And oftentimes we have many community members, people in community agencies who work with us to get interpreters in the right place. And really that support is essential for our office to run effectively.
So we have Tom has a question.
Yes, this is Tom Harbison, and so I'm just wondering, you receive about 50 requests per month about interpreter referrals. So out of that 50, how many are deaf individuals themselves that are making these requests? So just to reiterate, how many are deaf individuals, as an example, looking for interpreter referrals? Yeah, and again, this is general out of those 50 requests.
So this is, this would be different than the funding of interpreters or the service fund, but every month those requests that come in, on average, it's 50, and it's from a variety of people. We don't necessarily identify how many are deaf or hard of hearing, but we document that these requests come in. So we get most of our requests from the southern part of the state, eastern part of the state. So does that answer that question? Do you have more questions about that?
Right now, that was a good answer, because if we go on, it'll go all night. So
Okay.
let's just leave it at that.
So that answers your question for now, Pam?
Then we have when you monitor ODHH, or who represents ODHH, what's their role in terms of licensure? The second from the bottom bullet.
I think I just need some clarification on the question. Who is, when you monitor, who's the you? If you could just clarify who the you is there?
I'm trying to remember.
Are we looking for the intention of that? Of like, for example, who's monitoring ODHH?
So let me clarify. That question was from last month, our April meeting. Who monitors ODHH? I think that's the intent of the question. So if the U is removed, who monitors ODHH to make sure ODHH is following protocol? What's staff law, the expectations of your staff? I think people, and correct me if I'm wrong, so when ODHH is going about their business, if something wants to be changed, who do we go to at ODHH? Like, what does that look like?
So, more
Yes,
clarity on
thank
the
you.
organizational structure, is that what we're looking for?
Yes.
ODHH currently is under BADAR, Bureau of Aging and Disability Resources, under the Division of Long-Term Care. So that's where we're housed, which is under DHS. So that's the flow down from the governor to our office. The Division of Long-Term Care and is becoming the Division of Public Health. BADAR will remain the same and will become under DPH, which will report to the Secretary of DHS. The stakeholders will remain the same: WAD, HLAA, Wisconsin Council for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing, Wisconsin RED, and as well as community members as well, accessing the ADRCs, Aging and Disability Resource Centers, which are located around the state. So there's a lot of individuals accessing those services, and the independent living centers as well, the ILCs. So we have those stakeholders in the community, but that is the organizational structure of DHS and where we fit.
Is there any more related to this question, this bullet point? And this is Terry. Just as a point of clarification, you said that you're under DHS now and they will be transferred to DPH?
DHS will remain the same and provide the same services. Division of Public Health will formally be moved this summer. And Division of Long-Term Care will become the Division of Public Health officially this summer.
Yes, thank you.
Does that answer your question?
Yes. Lori has
I'm just gonna talk. Can I suggest that we might go ahead with the ODHH presentation and then visit the questions and see what weren't answered?
So Lori asked if we could just go ahead with the ODHH presentation and then have these questions answered possibly after the presentation. This is Pam. I want to clarify. Amber and I had some great discussions, and we feel that some of these questions will not be covered in the presentation. So we already know what's not included in the presentation, so that's why we're going ahead with these right now. The beginning questions here under ODHH we want to get through. All the list of questions we'll be looking at, touching on. And I don't know, all the ODHH questions I don't think will be addressed. But I can change my game plan, no problem. And this is Representative Brostoff.
Yeah, if we're not going to do the questions after, I want to go back to one of the questions earlier that I feel like has come up quite a bit in my short time on task force. And it seems like there's a big disconnect between interpreting services and those who are in need of interpreting services. And most recently, I experienced this just with a deaf lobby day that we set up at the Capitol, and dealing with the individual offices. And I'm a state legislator, and it was a huge hassle, so I can't imagine, especially after all the testimonials that we've gotten, what it's like on the day-to-day. So I was wondering if you could just explore that a little bit more. Maybe if you guys also are experiencing that, where you see there's a big issue, a big disconnect between interpreting services and those who are in need of it, and what's being done to move forward, and how this is being prioritized under your office, and if it's not, what needs to be done to make sure that these needs are being met moving forward and that it is a priority.
It's a very good question. Thanks for bringing that forward. Do you want me to go ahead and respond to that now, or do we want to come back to that?
It's important people understand, so please, Dan, go ahead.
The DHS has an office that's called the Legislative Affairs. That's an office that you would be able to contact, and if you were to have an issue, it would be referred to that office likely, and they would be able to help you through that process. There are some valid concerns, obviously. So you would be able to share those concerns with that Legislative Affairs office under DHS. Community requests specifically for interpreting services. We do provide consultative services in that regard. Provide assistance, information regarding coordination of services. So that is a service that we offer directly.
Yeah, and I know we have a lot to get through, so I'll be quick. I understand that, but it seems that even though those consultation services are being provided, there's still a divide between those who are in need of service and the services being provided or not provided. At least that's the feedback that I've gotten.
Amber, if you have something to add, sure.
I'm just gonna go ahead and voice because you're sitting right here. So we often get calls from community members, service providers, hospitals, agencies, and there's a lot of questions regarding the ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act, and who provides the interpreters for what. So oftentimes when we do get a call, it's after that disconnect has already happened.
Right.
So we're constantly responding in a proactive, reactive nature with explaining, okay, here's, Title I versus Title IV versus Title III of the Americans with Disabilities Act, and then trying to figure out where that gray area is. If it's employment related, is that, does it fall under ADA, or do we have the Wisconsin, Discrimination Act, and where that falls within then? So we provide a lot of consultation on that. We also get requests and contacts from consumers, deaf and hard of hearing, deafblind individuals themselves when there isn't a provision of an interpreter. So then we'll respond with that person and work through that process to get them in touch with the resources. We also have DHS Chapter 77, which allows us funding to pay for interpreters for deaf, hard of hearing, deafblind individuals when the ADA doesn't cover it, or state or federal law in other regards outside of ADA, so such as Section 504. So we'll provide those services, we'll provide information referral. The problem that comes into place.
One moment.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Thanks, ma'am. So the problem comes into play when we're not contacted, when there is an issue. So oftentimes, individuals have been not denied interpreter services 3, 4, 5 times before they reach out to our office. And that is a disservice. Oftentimes, we're also getting calls from service providers throughout the state of Wisconsin saying, I want to provide these services to this client. Where can I get interpreters? So we'll work with the service provider to get them in touch with an interpreter referral agency, funding resources. But if you think about how many interpreters we have in Wisconsin versus the population that Stefan utilizes ASL, we're looking at 1 interpreter per 253 deaf people
How
every
many?
single day. 1 out of 253
Okay.
on a single day. So there are going to be approximately 252 situations that could occur on a daily basis where there just isn't an interpreter available.
So the two big issues are that ODHH isn't being reached out to ahead of time, and the second is
One moment,
scarcity.
please, for the interpretation.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. Right, go ahead, Representative.
So the two issues that ODHH would say is it's a scarcity issue, and it's an issue of just the office not being contacted or contacted in time.
Right, so to speak to proactive and what we're doing proactively. So we have deaf and hard of hearing specialists that reach out to various service agencies throughout the state of Wisconsin on a weekly basis saying, hey, can we come provide a free training, a free resource for you? Where we can talk about how to address communication access issues, culture issues. We provide resources at that time. Here's some interpreter lists, here's some contacts. But again, with 4 staff members in 4 different regions throughout the state, and think about how many municipalities are in each county, it's really difficult to get in there. Plus, more and more trainings are happening online at conferences. So we're at state-sponsored conferences. And we do provide not only interpreter services for the deaf, hard of hearing, deafblind that utilize American Sign Language, but we're also doing those same resources and trainings for individuals that are hard of hearing with hearing aids, cochlear implants, assistive listening devices, and then we're trying to establish services for deafblind. So I definitely see that there is some type of disconnect, but I think there is some scarcity issue, some contact issue, and just trying to get out there to make sure that the individuals who are on the front line are sometimes not the ones that are allowed to go to trainings when we do those conferences. So if we're talking about a receptionist, who's typically the first person that a deaf or hard of hearing comes into contact with, they may not be attending those trainings, where we're at. So it's just an ongoing process of maintaining our constituencies and making sure that we're out there and answering those calls.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
One moment. Thank you.
Do you have any follow-up?
No, thank you very much.
And Representative Rostoff said his question was answered. Okay, I think what we'll do now, it's 7:25. I'm sure eyes are about to fall out. Let's take a 5-minute break. Okay, really 10 minute, but 5. Kind of regroup a little bit. I want to talk with Amber and Dan, just the 3 of us, so we can look at a better process, changing our plan to fit your needs. So let's go take a 5-minute break and then come back. Thank you.